No.
Star Wars reporter. Star Wars reporter. Hey,
That's getting better every week, I think.
You're getting I told you the singing lessons, man.
that was not me. That was a professional singer that I hired who's standing over there.
Right.
But anyways, welcome to the Star Wars Reporter podcast. I'm Wookie Steve, and I'm sure my family in the other room is cringing and wondering what the hell is going on.
Yes, I'm sure that's exactly what they're doing.
But they're cringy. Of course, I have teenage daughters, so they always cringe no matter what I do. But and my wife, well, you know. So, but welcome to our the Bad Batch podcast. We're going to be talking tonight. We're going to do a recap, a catch up of the episodes.
5 episodes.
5 episodes. Lots to talk about. And I'm here with my fellow scoundrels. I'm here with Trooper Todd.
Hello.
Hey.
And Jason, Revenge of the Jason.
What is going on, my good people? Oh, we're shaking. We're taking fire here.
What's going to go?
No.
So
under attack.
Before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone knows to follow us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, like other old people, Instagram, Twitter, especially if you want to fight and yell at people, and be sure to follow us on YouTube. And for all the latest news and all just the great stuff all around, you can check us out at StarWarsReporter.com. There's our site. And yeah, so tonight's topic, the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
Disney Plus. So
where to begin?
You can also join along if you're watching us live right now. You can leave comments, and we will make fun of you about your comments. No. We will. You can talk to us. Tell us what you think of certain things. You can make fun of Todd or Jason, whatever you want to do. So
that's what we're here for, just to be made fun of.
It's absolutely.
Well, someone's got to do it when our family's not around. So.
Exactly.
All right, guys. So, the Bad Batch. Let's start. What do you guys? I actually caught up. I watched the first episode when it first premiered on May 4th, and then I kind of watched the rest of it all in one because I didn't have time. All in one kind of jump yesterday.
Ooh. So it's like watch a big movie.
Very, very fresh. And it was very exciting. I'm glad I don't have to wait long to see the next episode. So,
see, for my schedule, I usually do it Friday after I finish work. That's usually my little reward I save for. Or usually it's Saturday. I watch it possibly after the hockey game. Although now I won't have to worry about hockey games so much. My team's done. So that usually it's Friday, Saturday. One time I think this last week I let it slip to Sunday. But yes, it's something I look forward to every single weekend. One thing I really think is good for Disney Plus is the fact that what they're doing, how they're separating. You don't have the Bad Batch and Mandalorian at the same time. They separate, so you get your fix of Star Wars all season long, right? Like what they're doing Marvel, right? That WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now they're coming with Loki, right? Like pretty smart tactics. They're never oversaturating. There's always something there, so it keeps you there. So my hat off to Disney and their release programs.
Schedule. Yeah.
It's so in an age too where like so used to binging and all this stuff. I'm like, you get wrapped up in a show and then you just you soak it in, you wail through it, and then there's the oh man, it's over, and you're like, there's that emptiness, and it's like it's so nice even with this, just to have like, oh cool, there's something. A new one's coming out Friday. It's like it's so nice to have something you're right in the middle of. So
you're looking forward to, right? Something.
Yes.
You work all week, and here's what you're looking forward to, right? It's something to aspire for, right?
Yes, it's true though. Yeah, for sure. Just it does like, oh cool, it comes out Friday. Finish up and hang out later on that night, and and check it out for sure. And I will actually. One thing's been on top of my mind too with with the Bad Batch that I can't help but love is that this era, right at the end, you know, right when Revenge of the Sith happened, right at the, you know, the end of the Clone Wars, right at that end, every time there's anything on just the rising empire, I get chills. You know, the Governor Tarkin stuff, and you know, just kind of the formation of like with the troopers and clones too. I thought of you, Todd. Like there was some really good, just sort of you know, the troopers and clones and Tarkin like working that stuff out, and I'm like, this is really interesting, and you can see even early on, to me, I'm like, wow, they're like really setting, rightfully so, what they become, this precedent of pretty brutal, you know, some pretty brutal troopers and characters, you know, taking form to form the Empire. Just that totalitarian kind of mindset of just, you know, you're on board, or you know, you might as well, you know, you'll be dead.
Yeah, I even thought it was a really interesting perspective. I don't know if, I think it was episode 2, right, where it really shows how the galaxy seems really excited about the Empire taking over, right? Like, because like there's been so war for so many years, and all this bad stuff's happened. Now it's like,
Right.
oh, the Empire is a good thing coming in. How everybody was so blindsided, right? They think
Right.
it's a good thing, but it's not, right? The fact that they rule by fear and intimidation, but everybody seemed really open for it and thought it was going to be a good thing. It's amazing how, again, it's all the whole entire manipulation. We talked about the prequels, right? How Darth Sidious just kind of manipulated everybody, and it's the same thing happening. It's carrying over. Where I think that's the brilliance of Filoni, still giving the same kind of feel and vibe that George Lucas set up in the prequels.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really, it's Palpatine just, you know, the plan is continuing forth full steam ahead now.
And I love the
Yeah.
fact that, you know, how Tarkin doesn't really have any respect for the clones at all, right? Like that's set
Yeah.
up really, really good. Like, because you've past episodes we talked about, I didn't really know what happened to the clones afterwards. This is obviously going to take us down that road and show us exactly what happens to the clones, right? It's just a really fascinating thing. And I thought episode 1, like at first, my son was asking me, "What's this about?" I said, "Well, I think it takes place right after Clone Wars." And after the movie Revenge of the Sith, he's like, then I'm watching going, oh, maybe it's not. Maybe it's during Clone Wars. Then all of a sudden, Order 66 comes through. It's like, whoa, here we go. And it was really, like, that first episode really set up the whole entire series. And like within the first 50 minutes, I was locked on, right? Like there's a big, huge, momentous event that happens, Order 66. And then you see the clone troopers taking out Jedis, right? It was right off the top. It was really good.
Now, in this, because we're doing a catch up, just to warn everyone, if there's anyone watching, that we will be jumping all over the place for the 5 episodes. But I was really looking forward to. I never thought about it for some reason until the second episode. It's like, oh, okay, so now we get to kind of see what happens to the clone troopers and how, you know, the normal stormtroopers kind of come into existence, and it's kind of like, you know, the two characters. I forget the other guy's name, not Tarkin, but the other guy, and he's kind of in charge of this. Like he's really promoting that we don't need these clones, and he's selling it like, in order to win the populace, we need to let them into the, you know, make them feel like they're a part of this. And I think that's kind of a really smart thing. And you know, I'm kind of wondering if that's kind of a scheme that other, you know, militaries have done, you know, when they kind of occupy a place and they're like, oh, look, we're good, everyone, you join in and help us too, which is you know, which is weird why they would want to get rid of the clone troopers so fast, or, you know, kind of, it just seems like they would be in charge of training or being in command of the normal stormtrooper units. But for clones to be so, you know, bred to be loyal and do what they're told and be so skilled without question, unless their chip doesn't work, it's just interesting how they were so quick to want to, you know, replace them, as one of the episodes was titled. So, but anyways,
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what Jerry just said here. Yes, the Palpatine speech from episode 3 that they took out from the movie and put into that was really, really effective. You know, the big speech. Now the new Galactic Empire. Like, it was so well done and so well inserted. And of course, that's when the whole entire people were watching it and cheering afterwards, right? Like,
yeah.
just how everybody was gaslighted and they all bought into this new regime, right? So
I know, and we're watching it from outside of the TV, but like, no, they're the bad
they're the bad
guys.
guys. What are you guys doing, man?
Are you so dumb? Can't you see it? Like, geez, go watch the movies. So, but it's, you know, it's kind of the psychology of it. It's probably that easy, right? When you have the whole universe at war, like you said, I think earlier, Todd, it's like they were just so relieved to have the war over. They were just like, great, whoever you are, just, yeah, you know,
And who stopped
tell
the
us
war?
what to do.
Right?
Yeah.
Who stopped the war? You know, Palpatine did, right? So why would he be?
Who caused it?
Yeah,
The Jedi.
oh, exactly. It's all gaslighting, right?
Right.
It's amazing. You can almost, you shine a light on the real world. You can see how it happens. It happens all over the world, right? So it's just amazing how it's not far fetched. It's actually based in reality, really. I know it's in a galaxy far, far away, and it's all fantasy and stuff. But at the same time, it's taking real world situations like from back in the dawn of time, right?
Right.
People, believing in something, and again, manipulation and everything. It's really horrifying, actually, when you look at it.
Yeah, I think that Filoni, again, of course, him and his team, they're going to do great in filling in all these little spaces again, right? Like between, like how they did it with Star Wars Rebels right before Episode 4 was to come out, right? They filled in these little spaces, and then now, after Episode 3, and they're filling in the little spaces. You know what I mean? It's really fascinating. And again, we're going to be delving into, by the end of Episode 5, into that favorite part that I've come to love about Star Wars universe, is seeing like the underbelly, the scoundrel side of the Star Wars universe, because of course, the Bad Batch goes from Republic Trooper Special Forces team to on the run deserters mercenary team.
Mercenary, exactly, right. And what I love,
Yeah.
look, you look at Filoni too. Like, the whole thing is, we're 5 episodes deep, and there's been so much character development with every single character on the show.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff going on. Like let's face it. There's the girl. The girl's name is not Oracle. Her name is
Omega.
Omega. Right. But there's something about her. Like, she's gifted of some sort. Like, how she can.
Yeah.
She's obviously she's some kind of sensitive, where she sees things and feels things. Right. Like,
there's something there, and I think that they referred to she's part of what they were doing was the next phase of the clone program, because as it turns out, Jango's DNA is degrading. So that's the reason they explain that, right? It's like they didn't why would they stop using him? It's because it was degrading and he wasn't around anymore, obviously.
Right. And I was gonna point that out actually before. I was just thinking that, there's an accident behind Todd. The things are falling apart.
Yeah, things are falling apart. My daughter's come in the room.
No. But yeah, that's right. Because on Camino, I think they were on Camino, and they were explaining that Jango Fett's, like, the DNA was degrading.
Yeah.
So they were considering that generation of clones maybe not really tip-top shape, so it was time for a new generation anyway. So that's at least what I took as some is, why they're moving on. But if you think about it, and this is kind of quick, just delving back, with Steve, what you just started talking about, not to get us off the rails, but I just took it as, because we know the clones like rapid age and everything as well, and they're built to be strong fighters for X amount of time. So they're probably like, look, this army, we used them. These guys are used up. It would be like buying an old car. It's got a lot of mileage on it, for our new wars ahead.
Yeah, everything's new. Everything's improved. We don't need the old. Yeah. And like you said, Todd, I think they are suggesting that that Omega, and that's what's Will saying in the comments, is Omega force sensitive, and that is the question. That could be the improvement because Filoni could be leading into what we're seeing in The Mandalorian, what's being exposed, or in these sequels about the cloning, trying to clone Force sensitive, which is why they want Grogu, et cetera, et cetera.
I thought so right from that first episode that Omega, that was possibly, because we talked about that even, I remember a couple of weeks ago, that like Omega, there could be a Force sensitivity thing going on there right from the get-go, for sure.
Even it's an empath or something, this is like she can sense feelings and stuff like that, like, and what kind of what a Jedi can do too. But even like the latest episode 5, where she knew that person they're looking for was that person, like she knew, right?
Yes.
Like there was no tell, but she knew. Maybe she was listening, but she's got something about her, right? Like even the Caminos are hiding something too, right? There's something I would love. There's something going on everywhere, right?
Right. And yeah, I remember that they kind of hinted. Sorry, what you were saying is when the Bad Batch were looking for that person, Sid.
Episode 5. Sid.
Yeah, Sid. And Sid was like, "Nah, Sid isn't here." And it was so obvious, right? That she was Sid. And they were just, and to be fair to the Bad Batch, I don't think they've never been kind of in civilian life. No. So they were just sent to go and do this and that. And they were in the position of power where they were just like, tell us this, tell us that. Or, actually, they didn't even have to do anything like that. It was like they were being commanded to go destroy, get, kill, or whatever.
Yeah.
And now they're having to like think like people, where obviously Omega has been brought up the next phase of clones, maybe to be more social for some reason. So, and maybe the Caminos, yeah, you're right, Jason, to your point, they seem to be acting a little weird, and maybe it's because they can see the writing on the wall for their program, and maybe they're not too happy that maybe the new empire is phasing out. So,
well, that's exactly it too. Yeah, I think that's their livelihood too, right? That's what that's their bread and butter, right? So they're looking at shutting them down, and they might shut them down permanently too, right? You just don't know. But yeah,
and the Jedi were a lot more amicable to work with. They're starting to learn that the Empire's not so nice.
No, some are picking up on that pretty fast, right? Well, even like that one episode with the family, remember that they were trying to sneak the family out, like the border, and they get through the guard with the passcode. Like that was like so intense. That was so intense. Like that's what, again, it's all about storytelling, right? Like you need the action, yes, you need that to satisfy the Star Wars fans, but then same time to keep people interest, to grow that base, you need to have amazing storytelling. And one thing Filoni's doing is amazing storytelling.
They have to. I was thinking to myself during that episode when Omega again left and didn't listen to them, I was like, okay, someone's got to duct tape her to a chair or something, because and it was kind of like in Star Wars Rebels when Ezra was always, because he was that abandoned street kid, and I think that to me there's a difference where Ezra was kind of like, for as young as he was kind of seasoned to avoiding the Empire and kind of getting those kinds of things done. And I think that Omega, as skilled as she may or may not be, or Force sensitive, I don't think she's got the same instincts yet. I think she's more positive, and which I kind of like what they're doing here, right? The hardened, battle hardened clone troopers are kind of being taught how to be a human or have feelings by this young girl, and she's kind of affecting him. You could see, right, especially with what's his name, Hunter, the guy that looks like Rambo.
Yeah.
Getting the father feeling from these clones. It's kind of, maybe it's an old story.
I really wonder where she's gonna go, man. Like, she's so much a central. She's the Grogu almost of the show in a way.
Yeah, she is
to me. And I'm like, right. And you can't help but think with the time frames and ages of everybody, like, okay, she's gonna be, like in her late 20s, 30 years old or something like that. When the original trilogy comes around, and I'm like, I was trying to think, who is she? Like, who could she be? Is she just going to be, somehow out of the story by then? Is she actually somebody we're going to go, oh my God, that's such and such? Whether it's a character on the outlying, but still influential on the old trilogy, or even all the way out into the sequels. But
Well, how old would she be, say, in the sequels? Would you say, like, what? How old is she supposed to be now?
well, what is she now? Like a 10-year-old or something?
10 or,
Something
10
like
or
that.
11. Something
Yeah.
like that, I
Something
think.
like that.
So she'd
Alright,
be
so-
in her.
So she's like 20 years from A New Hope, and then you're talking another, what is it, 30, 35 years.
Yeah.
So she'd be an older woman. She'd be in her mid 60s or something like that.
I wrote a note, and this is jumping way ahead to say the end of the series as a whole, and I just kind of got the feeling how it would end really well. And maybe people are going to disagree with me here, but it feels like that it would be awesome if they ended it by like Rogue One. I'm not necessarily saying Omega, but the clone troopers, the Bad Batch, all die.
Well,
in some kind of big thing would be awesome.
I'm sure they would. I can't see how it wouldn't be them dying. I can see Omega living on, right? But
Right.
that's why I sense it's going to be, because if the clones have expiry date, I'm sure they have expiry date too, unless they're augmented differently. But since she's the new batch, I imagine she'd be a little bit different. But
Yeah.
the biggest storyline I'm following right now, that I really can't wait for something to happen, because I'm sure it's going to happen. I'm sure it's going to happen soon. Is the big guy? Is his name Dozer? The big guy?
Wrecker.
Wrecker, yeah.
Because he keeps saying that he's like, my head. There's something wrong with his head. So
Yeah.
I think that maybe it's a chip malfunction or something like that. Like maybe he's going to start.
I think the chip's trying to work.
That's what I think is happening too. And so I think that's going to be a really interesting episode with him.
Awesome twist.
Yeah, and then again, but it's always little stories. Like there's so many storylines that they're hinting at, like side storylines, right? That are going to come out. And so, like, what I love about the Filoni, it's not episode by episode. There's a long game. Everything's a long game. And like Mandalorian, he meets these new characters, and they all impact the storyline as it goes along. And I think that's the exact same thing they're doing with this. And I just think that's really, really great way to suck people in and get more characters out there for the Star Wars universe.
Well, there you go. Will is thinking like Todd. Bring in Vader, young Vader.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Who wouldn't want that? That's got to happen, you would think, right?
This show was, obviously, we're all anticipating Obi-Wan. We already know something's going to go down. Yeah. But this show, man, because a lot of us feel like, man, let's see Vader in his Darth Vader prime, right now, hunting Jedi, and just this show, this is the time frame. if you're gonna do something Vader pre A New Hope, right after and we've got so much Tarkin already.
Yeah,
Anakin's got to be right off screen, man. He's got to be there. And Willie, real quick on your question,
the Rancor question.
With the Rancor.
Yeah.
Now, I was reading something that I have no idea. I'm just off the cuff here. I think it's a different one though. This one, its name was Moochie. That was the name of like this Rancor.
Moochie.
And I think the Rancor in Return of the Jedi, and I can't recall a name. It
starts with a T, I think. I was just reading that today.
I'm pretty sure it's a different Rancor, but we'll try to confirm that though. But
they kind of made the whole Rancor cute and helpful and everything else.
He's young. He's a baby.
He's a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it would be tragic if that was the one. It would be tragically funny to me in a way, but no, it'd be horrible though.
Which is fine, right? It'd be a nice connection, right? Yeah. Because that was the whole thing I thought was really cool. If I got the photo here, it was like Bib Fortuna showing up with Gamorrean guards and
chubby Gamorrean guards. Remember, chubby. Gamorrean
Oh
guards.
yeah. That's right. Look, there's a picture here, right? They're
See?
little,
Look at that. The way Gamorrean guards are supposed to look, not
but
the
they're not in
skinny
the
one.
Fight Club. But they're not in the Fight Club, though,
Well, good
right?
point. Yeah, but
Fight
all the Gamorrean,
Club.
but the Gamorrean guards at the end, where Boba Fett came in and took over Bib Fortune, the Gamorrean guards were skinny there too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. I remember we
That's right.
mentioned
I think
that.
Bib
yeah.
Fortune was eating all the food because
Right.
in the,
That's right, 'cause-
in the Gamorrean guard, he was big. He was trying to be Jabba.
That is.
And, Goldberry just said something here, and I want to point something out too. The story on the Rancor in Return of the Jedi, by the way, and Luke, I believe Lucas himself even said this. That creature, although obviously huge and kind of portrayed in the movie, it seemed kind of evil. But the idea was that the Rancor was not a bad critter, actually. It was starving, apparently, or it hadn't been fed well. It had the Rancor keeper, and as pointed out, but it wasn't really being treated well, and it was in bad shape. It was not supposed to be like an evil critter. So it was just like a giant pet not being treated very well.
Are you saying that he's a bad guy, but he wasn't a bad guy?
Just because he's a bad guy doesn't mean he's a bad guy.
Exactly.
Wreck-It Ralph is going to be every week, I think. Yeah. Yeah. That's,
I mean, there was, that Rancor keeper from his reaction to Return of the Jedi. I mean, and that was funny too, because it really in an instant changed, you see the Rancor, Luke's got to get through this horrible monster. And then you see the Rancor keeper and you're like, oh man.
He was crying. He was bawling.
Yeah, but made you feel bad.
Though. I know, yeah, exactly.
Like,
right.
Oh, man. Like,
but you have to cheer for the hero, and that was an obstacle for the hero to get over. Sometimes it sucks. The animals it's not the animal's fault. It's the keeper's fault.
Do you know what I noticed? This was one of the things I've been noticing and going, ooh, started in episode 3. And I wrote down my notes as holy murders. Like, when Crosshair gets set up in charge of these conscripts, the normal non-clones you see here, and the one disobeys the order, like,
and
I'm not doing that.
Brutal.
He is savage.
Kills them without thinking, and then orders them to kill the civilians like they were just like normal people and whatever. And I remember the one thing he says, I wrote down, good soldiers follow orders. And we know from history, World War II, that's not, I don't think that's a noble thing, obviously. But I was like, holy murders. Like, the series is not tame.
It's not, is it? Like, even the one where, am I getting mixed up with Clone Wars? I think I'm getting mixed up with Clone. No, it's one where they're protecting the family. Wasn't there a farmer family? No, I'm thinking mixed up with Clone Wars. So I'm watching both at the same time. Maybe it was the Clone Wars. Never mind. But there's a whole bunch of pirates. The pirates are there, and so that wasn't Bad Batch, right? The pirates haven't come out in the Bad Batch yet, or have they? The pirates, the kind of gray.
That one family in a Bad Batch was trying to get off world when Crosshair's crew
Are you
came.
talking about the
I
slaver people?
I'm talking about Clone Wars, right?
About the Clone
Wars. I'm sorry. I'm watching both at the same time.
No, it's all right.
I'm getting all mixed up. I apologize, guys. But,
no, it's fine.
But Steve, you're right. There's no shying away. Like, it has. There's people getting killed. There's murders. There's a lot of things happening to people.
But it's not like in the other series, like Clone Wars, or even in Rebels, it wasn't as in your face, and
the second season Clone Wars that has one young Boba Fett, and he has the bounty hunter bounty hunter with her. She's a lady. She's got a little antenna on the top of her head. She was murdering people, like gun pointed to the screen, and boom, and it was. She was not very nice to people.
Wow. Okay. Well. Yeah. Well, I was actually shocked. I was just kind of watching it and taking notes, and I remember seeing that going, oh wow, okay, so this Crosshair, which is interesting, and people were talking online that someone had asked a question, is this the beginning of the Death Troopers?
I was saying the same thing.
Right, the way that they look. Of course, the Death Troopers, aren't they like 6.5, 7 feet tall? Like, they made them, they're all like really, really tall, I thought, but
you have to start somewhere.
I'm thinking in Rogue One. Right. I thought they were very.
Aren't
very
you a little
tall.
short for a Death Trooper?
You gotta start somewhere.
they're being taught by the perfect person, right? Crosshair, who is like just does the job. There's no filter, there's no mercy or empathy. So of course, would be the perfect death trooper leader, death trooper unit.
And tell me those other soldiers now won't do everything he says, right?
Oh, they're
Like,
definitely
he's
But
he's
now
blazing the path, man.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
setting the precedent for that next step over the clone troopers. Like the clone troopers, even working for the Empire, you don't picture them as savage as what he just displayed. So he's setting a precedent for the character, because now because I'm like every episode I'm like, this dude, there's no less and less chance of him coming back. Not that there would have been anyway, but I just mean there's no question. So for the character personally, and for what he's doing for the Empire overall, he's blazing this ruthless territory that that the Empire is going to come to be known for.
Yeah, exactly. Good start. You're going to start a stormtrooper program. This is the way you start it off, right? So that that's why they're feared in all the movies, right? Because
right.
They're set up that they follow orders.
I was getting some of these facts off of StarWars.com. So, they're kind of like us. And the scene with Bib Fortuna, they were saying it's voiced by Matthew Wood, or he's voiced by Matthew Wood, the supervising sound editor of Star Wars The Bad Batch, and the actor who portrayed Fortuna in The Phantom Menace, more recently in The Mandalorian, which is kind of cool.
Oh.
Also, too, go back and look at that episode when Bib is in there talking to Sid. Take a look. There's artifacts on Sid's wall. And I remember seeing a picture of a helmet that looks just like this one here. The prototype Boba Fett helmet is on the wall. There's a standard Phase 2 clone trooper, a clone pilot, even the Mandalorian helmet, which is this one here. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And also the discussion of Ord Mantell, which I guess we're getting into episode 4. Isn't
the
that
bounty hunter we ran into on Ord
back?
Mantell changed my mind.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool, right? It's like a small universe.
Jeremy thinks that he has concerned with the Crosshairs redemption. He thinks that's what the whole entire storyline's about. So I'm guessing Jeremy thinks that Crosshairs will come back.
It's it's Star Wars, of course. Redemption is it's certainly not impossible, but I just see the way it's tracking with him, though. I'm like,
he's gonna be.
Boy.
I think he's gonna be like the Darth Vader of this storyline, right? Or he's going, that's or the General Grievous of the storyline, right? Like that's what I think he's going to be.
I think that has merit though, because Omega had said a couple times Crosshair can't help it when they were talking about the
That's
chip.
true. Yeah.
She said it twice. I
That's true.
don't know if it was in one episode or 2 episodes. And it's just kind of off to the side when she's saying, oh, he can't help it. It's this, the inhibitor, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Maybe Crosshair is going to come back. But
maybe that's a chance for redemption.
It?
Is that actually the implant or whatever is messed with? So maybe certainly possible. But the thing he's doing though that I don't think is redeemable. Yeah, again, maybe for him personally, but he's doing serious damage to any good cause, like permanent, because he's setting that precedent with those troopers and the way the Empire's stormtroopers and just how they are, that vicious, shoot first and deal with it later kind of attitude. So Crosshair himself, maybe they'll do something with his character, but he's doing irreparable damage to good.
Yeah,
for sure.
And maybe that's the end game result is the final confrontation. Who knows, right? Where there will be the redemption arc. But this is an interesting theory, eh, Steve?
Yeah. Willie here says there has to be a transition from clones to troopers. I think there will be an Order 67. Quote, end all clones, but how? Ooh, I like it.
Well, I mean, that's not completely out of the realm of possibility too. And you almost think because, Palpatine's, Order 66, it gave him control, so how much, how far does that control extend? So, who knows, something like that.
Well, Tarkin seems to be in control of deciding that anyway right now, right? You haven't seen much of Palpatine since Episode 1. It seems like Tarkin seems to be the big guy who's evaluating the situation, right? Doing an audit of what they're going to do. So, but yeah, it's an interesting that, I imagine the Caminos have some kind of fail-safe switch where they make a switch and then they all just stop operating. I imagine that's somewhere in there, and would make an interesting storyline. It's them trying to shut down all the clones in Camino.
No, I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it. What if the Empire says, okay, they're not just going to say, we're not going to buy any more clones.
Join us or die. They can't leave them,
but they would have to destroy that whole facility.
Yeah, absolutely. Wipe it out.
They kill everyone. They kill all the Caminos and absolutely wipe them out because they don't want anyone else to have access to their technology. Yeah, I think that's what it's going to come down to.
I haven't seen another Camino in any other sequel, or right. The Caminos don't seem to be anywhere else. I know they're in the Clone Wars, but I haven't seen them anywhere else.
It'll be interesting. So here is another person that has shown up. Is Krennic?
Oh yes.
And I thought it was an interesting episode when we first see her, right? She's the bounty hunter that was working with Boba Fett in The Mandalorian. And she's being tasked to get Omega, right? So, and I'm not sure if I remembered if the Bad Batch guys understand that they weren't after them, they were after her, or she was after Omega. And it just seemed weird. Like she wasn't really trying hard. She seemed to soften with Omega. And you know what I mean? Like she didn't seem to kind of go through with what she was supposed to. But, and I remember someone online saying something like, how old is she in The Mandalorian? Because like how many years later is this? Are we looking at? It was 5 years after Return of the Jedi. We see her in The Mandalorian, so she's well into her 20s here, right? So we're looking
a couple, a little more than a couple decades later, so 25 years or something.
Wow, she's aged very well.
Well, maybe she's an alien race that ages slowly.
Well, they have they've got Star Wars level Botox and stuff. You know, she's got really, really good eye cream, and
they put an artificial hand that looks real on Luke. So, just saying.
Yeah,
it's not unplausible. Again, and isn't she kind of now like partial android parts anyway?
She is now, I thought.
Yeah, she is now. Yeah,
because Boba Fett somehow helps her, right?
She's more machine than woman now.
Something.
Twisted and evil.
I like it. Yeah, and you know what I'm liking is the subtle, like it's not cameos or in your face. Look at this thing from another Star Wars show or series or book or comic. Like in Sid's a bar or whatever it is. I mean, you wouldn't have known if you hadn't been looking really hard about the kind of the stuff on the wall. Or I like the little Rancor. I thought it was funny, even though some people argue that the Rancor should have been, even as a baby, tearing everything apart. Meh, it was cute. And do you know what I'm liking is the Gonk droid. You know, the little battery.
Yeah.
Droid.
It hide, and turn into like a garbage can.
It's just the one thing. I think it's so funny, and it's I guess I've been bored, but I kind of looked up stuff and I sent it to you guys offline about the fact that at one point after the Battle of Endor that there was like a Gonk cult or something. There was what was it? I sent this to you, and I thought it was so funny. It was like sometime after the Battle of Endor, rumors began to spread regarding a cult of the power droids. Apparently, a pair of these Gonk power droids would come to one's door and request funding for a fringe religious group. Advice from renowned linguist, I can't say the name, was that one should merely utter the phrase "gonk, gonk, gonk." Anyways, a highly controversial statement that was not allowed to be legally translated. And then it was other uses. I guess the rebels used them not only for batteries, but in combat, they would have ammunition on them, so the rebels could get ammunition from them, and other stuff. And then some people would install arms with guns, hidden guns, and so they were used for more than just battery. But I just thought the whole cult thing made me laugh, and I think I sent that to you guys.
I've never seen. I didn't get a chance to read it, but I did see it.
I signed up. I'm part of it.
You joined the cult, did you?
I actually have a Gonk meeting in a few minutes, gentlemen. So if you'll excuse me.
Read him up.
Do you have the time to talk about Gonk? So Jen just sent a message saying, sorry, she's working late and it's all Todd's fault or something like that. I don't know.
No, it always is my fault, for sure.
Right.
So
she's the high priestess of Gonk.
And I think going back to what you guys were saying, well, everyone was saying about the quality of, what Filoni's doing with the story and stuff. I kind of like all the other, they're not superficial, but all the visual stuff. I made a note saying there's one thing about Star Wars that they've always done better than everyone else is the way that they design cities and street city life and what's going on. And I always love that part. Whether it's animated or in the movies, like in Rogue One in the Jeddah, and
yeah, it was cool.
Yeah,
how it looked, and even when we first see Cassian when he's meeting that contact of his before the stormtroopers come by at night,
information guy.
Yeah, I all that stuff, they do it so well. Like when the Bad Batch, when their ship is landing in a docking bay and stuff like that, and you get to see the whole city. I just love that.
Yeah.
Love that. It's one of my favorite parts of every episode.
Absolutely. Of all Star, and we're getting like a lot of those kind of environments now, which is cool. And the Mandalorian, Bad Batch, everything that you're saying.
And that's
for sure.
And they've done that from day one, right? From Mos Eisley in episode 4, right? They always have that kind of wide shot, establishing shot to show you what it looks like, right? Coruscant, you name it. It always gives you a visual representation of where these characters are, what it kind of looks like. So it paints a really good picture. So when they're walking down the streets, you get a sense of the environment they're in. It's a good point, Steve.
Another thing, with all of that thought, and I thought this too, continuing to watch the Bad Batch, and we said this after the first episode, of all the animated Star Wars too, the Bad Batch, as much as anything, is being done cinematically. And the soundtrack, if you notice, it's extremely, this isn't just watching a cartoon. Like, this show really ramped up. And I noticed even just the shading and the way everything,
the lighting, textures,
right?
Everything, the blasters,
and there is an immersion factor. And my initial thoughts on this, I still hold to with the Bad Batch. If anybody out there is on the fence, because a lot of people just they won't watch the cartoon stuff, the Clone Wars, whatever. And I get it. There's a little of a disconnect. It's not like watching a live action movie. But I would say anybody who's on the fence with Star Wars animated anything, the Bad Batch to me might be the in for some people. I find it and I still, I love Clone Wars. I'm still more into other shows so far, but there's an immersion of the way they're doing the Bad Batch that's drawing me into it. And I feel like I'm watching more live action show than on any of the other animated versions so far.
I agree. It definitely has that feel to it for sure.
Yeah. Let's episode 5, I'm getting the impression that they're going to be getting into the mercenary part of what the Bad Batch are going to become, right? Like, it feels like it's going to become like the Mandalorian, where they'll be, maybe working for Sid and doing jobs, right? Like this first job when they had to rescue Moochie, which they thought was this other alien kid that turns out to be this kid Rancor. But and she's like, oh, I have other jobs, and they're like, yeah, we're not doing any jobs. They're going to be doing jobs. Sid is going to be the contact, and I think is going to be the jumping part or point for the episodes. It's going to be, it's not the overarching story, which is Omega and what's her deal, and kind of the finale of what's going to happen to the Bad Batch, which I hope they go out in a blaze of glory like in Rogue One at the end. That's my hope. But where they're going to fill everything in, kind of like, I guess some would argue that the whole rescue Moochie from the slavers was kind of that filler episode. I still think it was awesome, but but what do you guys think?
You can say, sure, is it a filler episode? Sure, but at the same time, they're still developing some storylines. The big guy, the whole headache thing. That's just it's still developing character, it's still developing story, it's still developing. Like you have, again, you get to see Omega showing some other kind of ability. That there's something special about her when she picks out Sid. Yes, filler, but at the same time, it's still adding to the story. And that's what's important. It's always tied to developing characters. It's just not a random thing.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really, that benefits. Like, yeah, this episode, you could be like, I agree with Todd totally. And even if you have a plot line, like a story arc that's kind of going off to the side a little bit, if you just further give us something, if you give us even more questions on the character, or just do something, even if it's subtle, then it has meaning. And a lot of this stuff too, who knows, 5 episodes from now, I'll be like, oh, okay, it'll tie into something we weren't even thinking about. As long as you do that, just give us something.
Even like you're saying, it sounds like they've become mercenaries now. So Sid's now going to be possibly a player in the show, another character, right? That's going to help them go on different journeys. So therefore the whole episode is set up Sid, right? So again, it can't be a filler episode if it's a character who's now involved in the storyline.
Definitely. I mean, Sid has become Grief, right, from The Mandalorian. So So Willie points out Omega never used her newly found bow and arrow either. Yeah, I noticed that they did that. And you know what? I wonder if this is kind of like a Hollywood way of, they're not going to give a 10-year-old a blaster, right? It's like in a TV show, they're like, oh, this 10-year-old's she carries around a gun. It's the same thing. So for some reason, a laser bow is going to be less lethal for, say, the sensors or whoever, but it's going to make her different from the rest of them, right?
You bring up a really cool point. I remember seeing the bows going, why would they have bows? When I first saw it, now it makes total sense.
Well, Chimway from he had a bow, right? Didn't he? The blind, not Jedi. What's his name? From Rogue One.
No, he didn't have a bow. He had a staff.
Yeah, but he had this thing, like it was almost like it used it as a bow.
Yeah, he shot down
that's right. Like a crossbow type thing. His staff became, I forgot about that. That's right. He did.
Or even like Chewbacca's bowcaster. So it's kind of like, it's almost in that universe. Like maybe Lucas didn't intend it to be that way at first, right? It was just like familiar things from the original trilogy, but it was kind of like they brought an ancient weapon and just kind of made it more modern. So it's like, some kind of a laser bow of some sort or blaster bow. So it'll be interesting to see how her character develops, because I mean, she's the next phase and stuff, but I was a little worried in episode 1 that they were going to make her kind of like too much too fast. And I seem that they've made her kind of learning and growing all of a sudden by episode 2 to 5. So I was kind of relieved to see that she wasn't like, okay, guys, everyone just move aside. This 10-year-old's going to kind of save everything every episode. Yeah. So
but it's interesting because not only is she learning, they're learning too, right? Yes. Everybody's learning. Like they're learning how to be parents. Like when they tried shipping her off to that family, remember?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and then it's like, no, like, and so even like you had Wrecker, who's built her that bed, right? She had no place to stay, right? So it's just
Yeah.
they're evolving. She's evolving. They're all, like I said, it's all character development, and they're all changing from being just ruthless elite clone troopers who just followed orders to actually being independent. They've never been independent before, right? So
it's the power of children with hardened killer mercenaries, just like
exactly
in the Mandalorian, now in the Bad Batch. It's like it's the answer to everything.
if the formula works, right?
No. It's true. It's true. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what they're going to do with her. And you know what? With Wrecker having the problems with his chip, it's obvious. I've seen everywhere. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
I thought I was slick when I made a note on it. It's like everyone's thinking the same thing. But it would be cool that if maybe they all just don't die, what if Wrecker is the next one to go? Like the chip starts working, then he joins back up. Like it'd be really interesting, be different, right? If they won't do it that way. But
he's potentially very dangerous.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll probably do it like that's how they find a way to get the inhibitor chips out of them to save him. But it'd be cool if he went back to the Empire and helping Crosshair try to catch them. And then maybe as time goes on, each of them drops off. That'd be another cool thing. It's a little too edgy, and I don't think they would do it that way, but
yeah, that's a I don't know if that will happen. I think it'll be maybe a couple episode story arc, but
there's tremendous chance for some really dramatic stuff.
Well, absolutely.
With that idea, though, because you get some of your guys on the bad side, and they're just in. What are you gonna do with that? And they're, we already see a Crosshair. They're like just being brutal already, But there's a lot of potential with that. It's an interesting proposition for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling Todd before we went live, I thought, and I'm gonna get like my Star Wars card taken away for this, but I was having a hard time getting into the Clone Wars. And Todd's into his second season. He said it's like it gets much better. And I've been busy. I've been doing other stuff, so I've been having a hard time getting into it. And I thought, okay, that's I was busy, but also I was procrastinating with the Bad Batch. And when I started watching it, I was like, what you were saying, Jason. It's like, I love Star Wars Rebels, but I'm really, really into this. And for anyone that thinks that the animation is it's cartoons and they don't want to watch that, man. I think I've said this in other podcasts. Some of the best story writing is coming out of the animation group.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Clone Wars at its best is among the best Star Wars, and a lot of it. The thing with Clone Wars, like the major problem, I love it, is nitpicking, was that there were so many episodes that were the filler episodes. To me, were all kind of the same thing where, okay, a bunch of clone troopers go down to the planet and rescue the planet from blah, blah, blah. And then we go back maybe to the main arc. And it was almost too much rinse repeat with the filler episodes for me. But every season you kind of get less and less of that. And by the time you really get into the meat of stuff, because when Clone Wars deals with the major stuff, when it deals with like Ventress and Dooku and when you get Anakin and Obi, when you get to the meat of it, it's like the best stuff. It's fantastic. You just gotta watch through a fairly hefty amount of filler stuff sometimes, but it improves. But overall, it was wonderful.
Willie's pointed out, it says the Clone Wars cartoon double episode was better than the animation series to me.
I've started watching that. It's that the same guy was doing the Primal animated series. It's very visual. There's no dialogue. Like I watched, I think half the first one. And it's visually stunning.
It's fantastic. Yeah. I didn't understand before I actually finally myself, because I was late to the Clone Wars party too. I had seen The cartoon one though, when that was like new, and I'm like, that was killer because it just had like a kind of dark, intense,
Yeah.
and there's very little dialogue, and I mean, very cartoony, but at the same time, there was an intensity to it. And then the Clone Wars came out, and I just didn't watch the newer, what became all these seasons of Clone Wars. And I didn't know there was a distinction between the two for a little while. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, and that cartoon though, I can understand people liking that original cartoon better. Like, cause that was intense, some great visual episodes, man. Jedi just going nuts in that for sure.
Yeah.
The Kit Fisto one, and specific, the Mace Windu episode in that. They gave every major Jedi, they gave his
storyline. Yeah.
And they just went to town.
I have to catch up.
Those are great, and that's a quick watch too. You can blaze through the
easily
original cartoons
easily.
They're really cool.
I made a note. I forgot to say episode 3. I thought was really cool. Speaking of like nods or kind of the little cookies that were in there. Did you notice when the Bad Batch guys, they were talking about that their supplies were running low and their fuel and their food, and I forget who it is holding this ration box. It looks just like Luke's in The Empire Strikes Back.
Empire, yeah.
It's just these little things. I'm glad I was watching this alone because my wife would be like, "You're a dork," because I'd be like, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." Oh yeah, actually, no, she did come in. I was in our bedroom watching it and the TV, and she came in. She's like, "Are you taking notes? Are you trying to be smart for your podcast?" I was like,
"Nice,
no."
See, folks,
it's like
I am
list.
smart.
I wish I had taken notes because in just what you're saying. Oh man, I'm blanking out. I just remembered this. I should have wrote. There was a whole dialogue, little back and forth, that completely was almost not word for word, but was taken from somewhere in the original trilogy, and I'm blanking out now. But there was dialogue. I'm trying to think. It was almost from like A New Hope with Han Solo or something.
You know what? That's vaguely familiar to me too.
It was one of the bad guy, one of the wolf looking dudes, I think. I'll see if I can figure that out for next time. But there was this, and it was a couple or 2 or 3 lines that were exchanged, and I'm like, that's kind of a clever little spin on some original trilogy dialogue. I just can't recall it at the moment, but I'll look it up.
There was another thing from episode 4 I wrote down. It was the one Bad Batch. Was it Tech? The guy with the with the
robot arm. The guy
robot arm. Yeah, he was pretending to be a droid.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He was in the costume and that whole thing. I thought that was really hilarious. Where he takes over like the protocol droids. Like, I'm in charge, and he's got the gun, and I thought that whole thing was really fun, and I'm glad that
was good. Yeah.
And some humor in it, but that made me think of the 1980s Droids cartoon, because there was different storylines, and then as they changed the storylines, because R2 and C-3PO would go on to be owned by someone new or whatever, and one of them, they come across this droid sales where people are buying droids, and so the people that C-3PO and R2-D2 are with, I think he's I forget what he is, but he's trying to excavate stuff, but he needs droid help, and he buys this droid, and it turns out it's this person in this suit that looks like a droid who's a prince who's running, or he's in hiding, he's a prince of this planet, blah blah blah. And I thought, there's probably no connection, but I just thought it's really similar of what they were doing with this. I don't know if it was a callback or it was just, whatever. But
his name is Echo.
Sorry.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeremy pointed out it's Echo. Right. So, but I'm really loving it. Like, I'm really into it. Maybe years later, I'll be talking to someone who hasn't watched the series, saying, like everyone else to me with the Clone Wars, "What are you talking about? You got to watch the Bad Batch. What are you You're not a Star Wars fan." It's like, okay, how do I get through 8 seasons of the Bad Batch? You know
Right.
what I mean? Like what I'm trying to do now, I'm trying to do it the lazy. I'm trying to find that list for the Clone Wars that says in episode 1 only watch this, episode 2 only watch this to kind of catch up. But
Nah, you know what?
Todd's doing it.
I was like you were saying before. Like I was like the same way. I was having a hard time. Season 1 was a slog, but season 2, there's so many great storylines, and it's a treat now, and it doesn't feel like a slog at all. Totally
Yeah.
bought in. They brought in some really interesting characters. Just they develop, you know, love. They bring back Boba Fett as a young kid and infiltrating the whole entire. It's so good. Where
Yeah.
Boba Fett's trying to seek revenge on Mace Windu and kill him. It's so good.
Oh wow.
You get
Okay.
it's like you see the prequels, and the Clone Wars is like it takes every aspect of the prequels and just develops the crap out of it.
Yeah.
Like you get by the end of the show, you get so much stuff. It's just like a super prequels. It's the literal Clone Wars, which, and it's all those characters they just dig into all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And what's cool is too, like a lot of it now, even in the Mandalorian and even all these other shows, like the Clone Wars, it's tying in really nicely with everything. And obviously, the Bad Batch being an extension of it. So, but even with the Camino and the clone facilities, and you just get all of this stuff, and it's just tying in together nicely.
Look, Will's recent comment. See, this is what I've been saying. You guys heard me say this all through Mandalorian. Nice to see Hammerhead too.
Yes!
Hammerhead,
right? I've been saying this since Mandalorian. I want to see a Hammerhead species somewhere in the Mandalorian. I've been saying this since day one. We've never really seen a Hammerhead character do anything. I want to see it. It'd be so good. And Mandalorian would be great to see a Hammerhead. Thank you, Willie.
That's so funny. So final thoughts, guys. Where do you what is most exciting you about this series?
I just love, for me again, I'm a Stormtrooper fan. I love their outfits, how it's so much different from the Clone Troopers. I love how everyone's individualized. Do I want them to wear their helmets more? Yes, I do. But that's just my take on things. But I do love that they're always wearing their armor. I do love but that's just the image, the look of them, sort of thing, right? Love the characters. My favorite, I think, is this Wrecker storyline. I'm really looking forward to that, seeing what happens with that. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, definitely in line with all of that. And as I kind of said in the beginning, even I'm really intrigued by the rise of the Empire, and I'm intrigued just to see that even like on its own. Tarkin, I love Tarkin. I had no idea he was going to be in Rogue One, so I freaked out the first time I saw Rogue One.
Me too.
And then I'm similarly excited when I see him now in these animated shows. And I'm very curious on how these characters are going to develop as the Empire just closes in on everything, on the clone troopers, all those leftover guys, like we're talking about themselves, the fate of all that, and how are they going to operate continuously being suffocated by the Empire. So I hope we always have that. I hope we always have that huge influence of the Empire on everything they're doing. And obviously, let's see who the deal is with Omega. Like, I mean, to me, she's coming across to me, this is how you lay down the foundation for an extremely epic character. That's just the feeling I have. Not just, well, she's going to be, okay, she's kind of important. To me, I'm like, this is almost like they're laying this down for her to be something huge. But, maybe not. But I don't know. I'm like, this whole season already is like, again, to me, she's the Grogu of this show. Like, so it's like, all right,
Willie says, and the obvious, where the hell is Thrawn? maybe, you never know.
He's a little early for that yet, isn't it? No, I guess not. Is it?
No.
Rebels? He was in Rebels, was he?
Rebels. He was in Rebels there. So that was, it was before episode 4. Yeah.
Well,
so,
yeah, I mean, he could be, but like Thrawn's biggest influence was really after Return of the Jedi. Like he was big in gathering together
Right.
the remnants of the Imperial forces afterwards.
Right.
So could he be around a young Thrawn? Sure, absolutely.
Just a young
Right.
Thrawn.
But I don't know that they're gonna. I don't know that they would focus on him so much now, especially if they are gonna. Will we see him? Sure, we could, but I don't know. I mean, who knows? You know, we'll see. But I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna really save him for the Mandalorian.
We just have to sit back and relax, guys, and enjoy the view, right? That's all we can do is sit back and watch it all unravel,
that's
right?
all good.
The nice thing about the saying is we don't know what's going to happen, and it's nice to have, just not know what's going to happen. That's a nice thing about the new Star Wars, the fact that we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
Because it's all new. They haven't been, something around for like 100 years, like how old we are. So
it'd be interesting to see if Omega shows up in a Mandalorian or in Ahsoka, or like down the road. It'd be kind of interesting because again, that possibility exists depending on what happens with the character.
Yeah. I am looking what I'm looking forward to, aside from the story coming out of what Omega is or what her role is or what happens to the Bad Batch. I'm really interested in seeing, now that they're probably going to be mercenaries doing the odd jobs for Sid. I want to see more of that kind of the scoundrel side of the universe, like how it's unfolding under the Empire, right? Because the Empire is going to have some dealings with the underworld, like what they do with bounty hunters. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. And I'm really hoping that the Bad Batch has a Rogue One ending. Maybe not, but I'm looking forward to that. So I'm really loving this series, and I can't wait till Friday for the next episode. So
don't fall behind this time, Steve. Don't fall behind.
Hey, it was awesome. I just one after the other. It was perfect. Now I got to wait a week every time. So
it's gonna even if you look at the comments, Jeremy and both Willie are both saying how they just how this is really it's rekindling their passion for Star Wars, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So, that's
Jeremy says, we went so long without anything but books and comics. Now with the shows, it's crazy the content we get. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's fun. This is fun. This stuff.
Like
what
Willie says here,
and right, and both you guys, good comments. Exactly. I like Star Wars again. I was getting scared there. That's it's another thing with the animated shows, man. They've really been kind of nailing it, and they are fun. The Clone Wars was a tremendous amount of fun and added so much, and Rebels, and now all this stuff. So we're on they're on a good path with this.
So Willie is taken off. Thanks for joining. Actually, we're going to be kind of wrapping it up here. We want to thank Jeremy, Willie, Goldberry, and everyone else who was in the chat or listening and not chatting with us.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
We will be here next Tuesday night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern. So, we just want to I'll remind everyone again to follow us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Instagram has no booty pictures yet, but we're trying to convince Jason and Todd to get into it. And follow us. You can see it on the screen below. And make sure you follow us on our YouTube channel. And we hate to say it, but we have to go.
No!